Today, we're going to close the book on LSU. We're going to talk some Bless Harris news. And Drake, with our newfound optimism, we're going to revisit this schedule 12-0.
And we have an old friend stop by to get his thoughts and reactions, and also kind of basically have a little bit of a bragging rights tour. But folks, thank you guys so much for being Locked On Seminoles, your first listen each and every single day. And with that being said, let's go on with the show.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to another edition of Locked On Seminoles. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Drake here, and today I am joined by Dave, but also we have a very, very special guest with us today, a man who needs no introduction, one of our best friends, and someone who basically is near and dear to both of our hearts, and also yours as well, as a listener for a very long time, Seminoles Anonymous. We have Mr. Max Moody of the Seminole Executive Brief, back with the boys, back with the game. Max, how's it going, my guy?
What's up, guys? It's good, man. It's good. It is. It feels good to be here. We're back. Not that we went anywhere. If you haven't seen that Nick Cage movie, you got to see it. But it's good, man. It's good to be back. What a week. What a. Do y'all feel like a little deflated this week almost? Like it's like we had just the whole offseason was about this LSU game and we did it, and then it's like, oh man, that was a ride.
I couldn't feel less deflated. In fact,
not deflated, like upset, but just like it's like all the adrenaline.
I don't know how to
contain. My body.
I don't know how to contain what's going on.
This is the first time we've ever had a winning program as a podcast. You do realize that, right? That's more what I'm kind of ride right now.
For those that weren't there since the beginning when we were Noles Anonymous, this started as a support group for those suffering from Florida State fandom, and now look where we are.
Look at us now, and also since Max has been basically the big Jordan Travis truther, and basically this is we were talking about the LSU game. Max has been there since day one. He's the president of the J Trav High fan club. Max, take your victory lap for right now. Talk about LSU. Talk about some Jordan Travis highlights.
I mean, it's really simple, right? I said that if Jordan Travis could keep his stats the exact same and increase his yards per attempt, he'd be pushing 3,000, 3,500 yards, and that's what he's done, right? You look at him last year, 63% completions this year, 64.6. The difference is yards per attempt last year, 7.9. This year it's 9.7. That is one of the best ways to judge a quarterback, right? Because it adjusts for completions. It looks at I guess not how far they're throwing the ball, but how long their individual completions are. So it kind of looks at everything that we consider. So he's throwing the ball deeper downfield. He's completing passes more often. Whatever it is, that number's jumped. And if he can keep it 65% and 9 yards per attempt, and he can throw 300 times versus 160 last year, he's going to have a hell of a campaign. So it's really exciting. I mean, I keep calling him the passer that was promised, right? Like a little Game of Thrones reference, but he looks crisp. I mean, his best throws on Sunday were dropped. Plain and simple. He threw an absolute NFL throw to Cam McDonald that I don't really know what happened there. The one in the end zone was a dime. I know Johnny Wilson had a drop. My favorite throw, though, actually, of all of them was the one where Pookie got a little bit out leveraged on the sidelines. And here's why. That was the exact same type of play that Mackenzie Milton threw 2 picks on last year. One against Florida, one to end the game against Louisville, where he threw a 50-50 ball in that scenario. So when the receiver got out leveraged, it resulted in a pick. Jordan Travis now has the wherewithal to know, hey, maybe my 6-foot flat receiver is not going to out leverage that DB. So why don't I put it out of bounds where only the receiver can get it? So if he does get pushed out, great. It's an incompletion, non-interception, and a bunch of other things that just show his maturity as a passer and the skills he's developed have got me really, really excited for this season.
Yeah, me too. And overall, basically, like you kind of were the one that's beating the drum. Dave and myself, and probably stronger myself, weren't a little more skeptical. And so far, it basically seems that Jordan Travis, for lack of a better word, is making me look like a big dumb idiot. And so far, basically, he's actually improved, going forward. And to me, I hope he's fully healthy for the season, because even if he stays, I guess, 80% of what we saw this past Sunday against LSU, this team has a very, very high ceiling. Right, Dave?
Yeah, and I just want to point something out. This is not taking any credit away from Jordan Travis. doesn't hurt that he has like actual receivers to throw to, and that Pokey Wilson is his third
Right.
best receiver, and doesn't hurt that his offensive line is no longer a turnstile, even if it's not the best in college football yet. But good to have all these new additions to the team, Drake. I think we have to talk about one of the new additions, unfortunately, not such a good sense, don't we?
Yeah, we do, unfortunately. And one of the things that, Max, before you left here, we were talking about how the depth of the offensive line as a whole was probably one of the stronger suits kind of for this entire team. Now, unfortunately, we have lost 2 transfers in the past month. Caden Lyles, as we spoke about earlier this month, is out for the rest of the year due to a lower leg injury. And now we're finally getting word that from, I guess, yesterday or the day before, I think when Mike Norvell spoke to the media, that Bless Harris is out for the remainder of the season with, I don't think they gave out clarity. I know it's an upper arm injury. I'm pretty sure it's either like around this area here. So losing Bless Harris, Max, what do you make of that? Because I had him penciled in as a potential starter at right tackle for the remainder of the year.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we're showing our depth. I'll be honest, man. I didn't really notice him not in there on Sunday. I mean, there wasn't a single play where I was like, man, if Bless had been in there. What I did notice was a complete lack of targeting and late hit flags. Which I mean, you guys know I'm the ref player. Go back. I've rewatched the game twice now. BJ Ojolari should have been ejected in the first quarter twice for late hits and targeting. But whatever. Big 12 refs, they're
They don't know what
bound to the
defense
new
looks like.
overlords.
So that happens.
Right.
Yeah, they're very confused. And then again, Renardo Green pushes a blocker as a play's ending, and that's a late hit. I'd never seen that called in my life. But I don't think there was one time where I'm like, man, because you look at the numbers and Bless wasn't amazing when he was in. I mean, he could have been a starter, but he was a depth piece, whether that was he's number one and he was protecting the second guy.
Fungible with the second guy.
Right, or vice versa. I mean, you're not seeing a huge new baseball stat. I like to use value over replacement player with Bless Harris. He's kind of an average offensive tackle, which you don't want to see him hurt, but it isn't changing measurably my win total on the year.
Well, I mean, more like, how does it make you feel, guys, for depth purposes wise? Because that was the one thing.
Not great.
Yeah, right.
That was more what I wanted to get at for you.
But that's the easy and obvious answer, right? Like,
yeah.
But that's not the end of the equation, though. Like, it doesn't end with, oh, we have no depth anymore. Like, for example, Julian Armella apparently has been doing great in practice. Yeah, he's an 18-year-old kid, but that's a big kid. And what?
Doesn't look 18, if we're being honest here.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So if we had to rely on him, I don't think for example, if we had to put him in at right tackle, is he that much of a drop-off from Bless Harris? We know his ceiling may be higher, so I don't worry that much. Like, we knew we had depth. Here it is.
Let me pose it to you this way, too. Let's not even talk about Bless Harris because we can't control the fact that he's out. Do you feel any worse about Julian Armella playing as a true freshman than you did about Mo Smith playing as a true freshman 2 years ago?
Not at all.
No, not really, because I think Julian Armella comes in with a little more hype, and we also already heard that he was kind of performing extremely well. With the Mo Smith thing, I actually feel better about Julian because Mo Smith always came in a little bit smaller, and also snapping, we were kind of, probably for me, I was very scarred with not having centers that knew how to snap the ball and then block correctly for the past few seasons, so I was very wary on that. But, I mean, to me, overall, I have no problem with Julian Armella sliding in, but thankfully, we brought in the South Carolina transfer and Jazzy T, Mr. Jason Turrentine. We don't have to call him Jason Turnstile yet. But to me, overall, he performed admirably, I think is the best way to put it, because his pass blocking stats were pretty well. But overall, he definitely might be the unsung hero of this offensive line overall, aside next to Demetri Emanuel, to see hopefully he can improve the rest of the year.
I mean, he's your best pass blocker according to Pro Football Focus on 130 snaps, Turrentine is. So, yeah, I mean, he's performed really well in the pass block. Look, that guy is literally built in a lab for pass blocking, though. He's, like 6'6", 6'7", but he has a wingspan of someone who's like 6'9". So he's already long, and he's got long arms. Yeah, he is a really solid. And he showed up like not sloppy and like, just like, oh, has this guy been in a weight room? He showed up looking like a Power 5 offensive lineman, which is a huge help.
Yeah, so to close the chapter on this, I think the answer would be losing Bless Harris sucks, but I don't think it actually hurts our performance unless another 1 or 2 tackles go down. So we'll be all right.
I think that's a great summary.
Yeah, I think that's good too. So hopefully next year when Bless comes back, it can maybe be more of a blessing in disguise when he comes back on the offensive line. But
don't do
bad
that.
Bad puns aside, though, folks, we would like to thank each and every single one of you for Locked On Seminoles. You first listen each and every single day. But we talk about our friends over at Bet Online. Bet Online is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your latest sports action. While Max is giving me the silent treatment over there, but I do want to ask, because it's usually a Fade Dave segment, I do need to go over actually and ask Max basically about his second favorite team, and that is the team that near and dear to his heart. He roots for them in secret. and that is the team taking on the Louisville Cardinals on Friday night. And that is the UCF Charge On Knights, led by Gus Malzahn and the three-name Pilgrim transfer QB from Ole Miss, John Rice Plumlee. Max, UCF is a 5.5-point favorite over Louisville. What are you taking in this game? And if you're doing your math right now, I can let Dave go on first if you want.
No, it's okay. I've got you. So this is before Malik Cunningham had just an abysmal performance against Syracuse last week. I would have had UCF at home as like a 9-ish. Yeah, I would have had them as an 8-point favorite. By the way, across all games last week, my proprietary model had an average miss on the outcome of 2 points. So I'm trusting it for one more week. And yeah, I think UCF, if he plays like that, Malik Cunningham plays like that, is going to murder Louisville.
That's not going to happen. Louisville money line is the easiest bet of the year. Easy. Done.
And that's why, folks, we have the Fade Day segment, because Fade does not know ball like Max and I know ball. So, folks, take UCF minus 5.5. Head on over to betonline.net today and use promo code Locked On. That's promo code Locked On, LOCKEDON. BetOnline, where the game starts. So we are back, and we are rock and rolling here in your favorite daily Florida State Seminoles sports podcast. As we always, folks, please 5-star reviews, either on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast from. And also, go on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe button, tippy top, and also ding the little bell so you know when new content drops. Gentlemen, now we look towards the schedule. We have 10 games remaining. We'll do 5 games. This is this segment, 5 games in the last segment. Dave, you kick us off right now. How do you feel after the LSU and Duquesne wins heading into the meteor half of the schedule right now?
Right. This is a different exercise than before. We had almost no information. It was all speculation before every other time we've done this because it was all preseason. We have 2 games isn't a huge sample size, but we know a lot more about this team. And I think our perspectives are probably a lot different. Like, for example, it starts for me the very first game we play. If you go back and listen to every preview we've done, I've told you with 100% confidence we're going to lose to Louisville. I'm now confident that unless Malik Cunningham goes out and has a Heisman performance against UCF, which is possible, and even if he does, I think that game is winnable now. I didn't think so before. You look at the rest of the first half of the rest of the schedule, I guess, which is through Clemson, I want to say. So we play BC, Wake, NC State, Clemson. Which one of those teams did you watch these last week and say to yourself, oh, crap, I really wish we didn't have to play them?
I mean, here's the thing. I didn't think I'd say this, but that is supposed to be a quarterback gauntlet. And oddly enough, Clemson had the best quarterback play of every team we're going to play, and it wasn't their starter. And I think that Dabo is just too damn stubborn to start Cade Klubnik, and you're going to see that offense falter. But here's the thing. It's week 1, right? And we love to overreact, and I do it myself. Like, it's crazy. I'm going to be really interested to watch Phil Jerkovich at Boston College this weekend, Sam Hartman returning against Vanderbilt for Wake Forest, and even Devin Leary kind of had a bad week last week. So I don't know if the preseason hype is going to all these guys' heads. I mean, it happens, but look at 2014. We kept waiting for Jameis to bounce back, and he never got back into 2013 form. Some would argue still hasn't. So maybe these quarterbacks are just going to be worse, and we're going to win 4 of the next 5. Maybe they all just had a bad week, and it's still kind of like, hey, if we can get out of these next 5 with 3 wins, we'll be really, really happy. It's tough to say.
I was just going to ask that. So I think before the season, we would have said we need to go 3-2 in that span. Not that we would, but we need to. Where are you at now? Because I'm kind of in my head at thinking with what I've seen with this Florida State team and with what I've seen out of those teams, but more the former, I now feel like we need to go 4-1 in this stretch to really capture what seems like not lightning in a bottle, but what seems like something special-ish that the coaches have brewing through 2 weeks.
I'd probably go 3-2 personally. I think 4-1 is kind of like, I get where you're going at with this day, but I think what Max was saying with Devin Leary, I personally think Devin Leary will have more of a bounce back game because the ECU as your first, game overall, it's a tough place to go to, in-state rivalry. I do agree though that Boston College is a bad team. I don't know how I'm now on the train where that you and Max have been conducting that. Jeff Hafley, how are you a defensive, coordinator by trait, and you have one of the worst defenses in the ACC? Now for Jerkovich, you see how he has a fully decimated offensive line. Max, you discussed this ad nauseum. Jordan Travis was successful because he was able to basically make the offensive line look better. But Jerkovich is mobile enough for that. So to me, 3-2, I think, should be the movement here because Louisville looks terrible. Boston College isn't very good. And quite honestly, Wake Forest, we don't know how basically Sam Hartman's going to look this week against Vanderbilt. He might be able to, build some strength, up in his shoulder. But that remains to be seen. To me, Devin Leary is still dangerous, but the Clemson game, to me, that might be the more likely winnable game out of NC State and Clemson is the Clemson game, honestly.
You guys are talking about the wrong quarterbacks here, I think.
Well,
Hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
If Jordan Travis keeps up the level of performance that he has thus far through 2 games, does that change your outlook? No, say he plays exactly like he has thus far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of assuming, right? What do we call it? Ceteris paribus, like all things being equal. I'm not assuming a drop off. I mean, but here's what's bugging me, right? And this is kind of at like the shadow Knowles or the dark side Knowles, whatever they call themselves on Twitter. 2 weeks ago, it was LSU is a must win. If we don't win, Mike Norvell should be fired. So if you felt that way, why is your projection changing because we did what we were supposed to do? You know what I mean? Like, you can't say this is a 6-6 team, but LSU's a must win, and then we beat LSU, and you go, okay, we better win 9. It's like, no, you said win 6, including LSU. It's this funny little cherry picking we like to do where it's kind of like name syndrome almost, but it's like each game is super important. But then the aggregate, I mean, all 3 of us picked us to win the LSU game, so like nothing's really changed, right? But what's different? They're doing what we expected when we all picked them to win 7 or 8 games. So I don't think we should overreact.
I think what's changed is that you actually had this full faith and credit with Jordan Travis actually making this kind of step forward, whereas Dave and myself did not see the jump come forward with that. And that's kind of where we're adjusting with that overall. Basically, we're seeing more wins.
For me, it's not even Jordan Travis. It's part Jordan Travis, but it's the other part is these X factors. Like, we wondered, will these new receivers be who we think they could be? And the answer so far is
the defense too.
The defense is what we thought they could be. Like, there were a lot of question marks that
they got to learn how to cover people, though. I'll tell you what.
They didn't let anything get behind them.
Fair, but
that's half the game. That's half the game.
I've seen enough, even outside of Jordan Travis, that I have the kind of question marks answered that lead me to not 7 wins now is no longer acceptable. 8 wins, unless we have just been duped these last 2 weeks, which I genuinely do not believe we have. This is a 9-win football team. That's what we should be striving for.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to sit. I hope I don't get screamed at like I did in LSU. By the way, y'all want amusement? Go to an SEC team space the day after you beat them. I mean, boy was that exciting.
Did you see that moron, the Jordy Collada show or whatever? Like, basically how he went from LSU was a great team, and like, it's 2 bad teams. I'm like, you moron.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I was told I'm not allowed to use math, so that was fun.
Right.
But yeah, I've got us at about 9 wins. Possibly 8. I mean, I'll just blitz it through game by game. Louisville, I got to see if Malik Cunningham's just bad or if he had an off game, or because, guys, Syracuse could just be really good. I mean, Dino Babers has been there forever, and I watched that game. They just bullied Louisville around. I mean, maybe we aren't able to do that. Who knows? Boston College, I think that's a sure thing. Wake Forest, 50-50 ball for me. NC State, I mean, gosh, their defense looks atrocious. Their special teams is decent,
in Carter Finley.
Yeah, I'm going to be at that game, so I'm hoping we pull it out. And I don't know. I'm not ready to sell Clemson down. I'm not ready to sell Clemson yet. I'm still holding on to my Clemson stock because, again, like last year, they were pretty awful by Clemson standards and still won 10 games. So, like, is this going to be 2017 for them or 2014 for them? Like, compared to us, So
are you happy? Are you happy with 3-2 for that stretch?
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, if we go 3-2 through that stretch, we're out of the first 7 games at what, 5-2? I mean,
I would.
I'm very satisfied with that.
You would trade that actually if you knew that was going to be in a heart, because remember we were talking about like how we wanted to see at least 2 wins in the first 3, and now you have a really legitimate shot to win 3 in the first 3 games, because Louisville, to me, going down as well. Louisville, I think Scott Stafford's terrible. That defense is atrocious. There's a reason why we didn't mention their anybody else besides Malik Cunningham, because the defense overall isn't that great. BC might be the worst team in the Atlantic. Wake Forest, Max, I agree with you, 50-50. NC State, that to me is going to be difficult in Carter Finley, but with Clemson, the defense is still elite. That offense is not good until Kate Clemson comes in.
Yeah, and I guess my question is, if we go 2-3 in that stretch, and by the way, just talking about like who we're playing, that's a tough schedule. That's a murderer's row of quarterbacks, even if they haven't lit it up thus far. Like, it's plausible that they play above their heads and 3 of those teams beat you. if we end up 4-3 after this stretch, we're having a very different conversation looking back and saying, what did we miss? What went wrong? But would you be okay? Not would you be happy, but would you be understanding of being 4-3 after that 5-game stretch?
If 2 weeks ago you'd given me that and said you can fast forward to that, but you have to take it now, I would have been like, yes, give it to me. Because I think we'll talk about this next segment. I think, yeah, you have three very winnable games, right, in the back half, and you got a Miami and Florida. Stuff happens in rivalry games, so yeah, you could still get out of the season with 7 or 8 wins if that happens. And again, I think that's still a successful season. I'm just going to say it because I like cursing our team. We don't have a great track record having a big emotional wins over SEC teams and having to go play Louisville with a running quarterback. So, if you have a performance like that, it's a big problem. But yeah, if a couple balls bounce your way, or bounce the other way, and it's like they're close, I'm not going to love it. I won't be excited, but I'm not going to tear up my paper and be like, this team is trash. It's just going to be like, hey, let's get it together in the back half,
And quite honestly, we'll probably have a lot more to talk about if we actually end up 4-3, kind of probably heading into that bye week, and it'll be a lot more of a growing thing. And also, like we're about to discuss right now, there are definitely 3 teams on the back half that we definitely probably should be seeing as automatic W's.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen. We are now in the final half, the last 5 games for the Florida State Seminoles overall. Let's say, basically, we all feel 5-2 is probably where we're going to be ending up at the end of this. You want to do 5-2 or you want to do 4-3?
5-2.
5-2. Okay, so we're heading into Georgia Tech after the bye week on October 29th, Halloween weekend. We kind of look at this as more of a trap game overall, but to me, this basically, we win this game, right, overall.
Right? After a bye week.
Yeah, it's after a bye week, and Georgia Tech kind of showed how Jeff Collins might also be doing his team a favor if he doesn't show up to the game, for being honest.
Yep.
Yeah, this is, look, you have an opportunity here, right? You have an opportunity to go out there and make Jeff Sims realize there's a reason that he's not your starting quarterback, and that you made the right decision when you sent him up to Atlanta instead of bringing him to Tallahassee. And possibly, if you look at the timing of this, you have a really good chance to put the nail in the Jeff Collins coffin. And y'all know I am spiteful. I'm petty. I don't forgive nor forget. And I don't forget what they did in 2020. And I would love to watch this team just get pummeled into the earth and have a miserable time in Tallahassee and Jeff Collins not be allowed on the team bus back to Atlanta. Nothing would make me happier.
Yeah, that's a game you have to win. That's not a game that I don't care how many injuries we have between now and then, hopefully as few as possible. I don't care how Jordan Travis plays. If he has a mediocre game, that's when we should still win. This is one of those classic games where we as fans get really frustrated when in prior years we've said, you got to win the games you should win. This is a prototypical example of that.
There's no excuse for Georgia Tech to leave Tallahassee with a win. Even if their bus stops 15 miles north and they play Childs High School, they should not leave Tallahassee with a win. That's just an awful, atrocious football team who had like a little bit of life against Clemson for a quarter, but they're just bad at football.
Yes.
It was 14-10 after the first 5 minutes of the third quarter. I thought I was giving Jeff Collins some faith. No, I wasn't. But looking at Louisiana, we're going to talk about that game. Billy Napier's gone. Most of the transfers are gone. I know a lot. Like
nothing to say.
That's nothing really to say. I'm going to leave the rivalry games last, and I'm going to look at Syracuse. Max, you brought up a really good point. Syracuse might actually be a good team. Dean Waivers has been there for a very long time. Sean Tucker is still the best running back in the ACC. Garrett Schrader actually showed he's able to pass the ball, and that defense looks very strong. Dave, I know you have some opinions on this. Go right ahead.
We have the best defensive line in the ACC and probably in the country. We have the best interior defensive line, definitely in the ACC, probably in the country. Sean Tucker's not going to be able to get away with what he has against this defensive line. I'd be really surprised by that. And I think as Jared Verse goes through the year, I think he's going to become a more complete player, not just a pass rusher. And I think you're going to be able to rotate guys in and out like we saw against LSU, who are going to be able to come in fresh. And I don't think Syracuse will be able to run the ball down your throat. And I'm very confident that Schrader's not going to be able to beat you with his arm. So that's not quite a Georgia Tech must-win game to me. It's a damn, you really can't lose that game to me.
Yeah, I mean, this after this weekend, and I'm going to overreact here, but this has become my biggest trap game on the schedule. Like you play your hardest stretch of 4 games, going to NC State, Clemson. Yes, you get a bye week. Georgia Tech, sure, so kind of 2 bye weeks. And then you got to play Miami on the road, and then you have to go literally the farthest distance you could travel in the ACC, right? I guess you could go to Boston College, but from Syracuse, you have to go from Miami all the way up to Syracuse the next week. that's just a tough one, man. I have to see, like, was last week a flash in the pan, or is this actually a decent football team? Because I think the game plan is simple, right? You just held Jaden Daniels, one of the best running quarterbacks in the country, to what you held him to, right? And you forced him to beat you with his arm, and he couldn't. You do that to Schrader, you're probably fine. It's just, we'll see.
Would this change your mind, either of you?
Maybe.
Syracuse's schedule leading up to Florida State and immediately afterwards is as follows. They play NC State on October 15th, Clemson on October 22nd, Notre Dame on October 29th, Pitt on November 5th, no bye weeks in this span, then us, and then the very next week they play Wake. All of those teams right now.
Oh boy, so they have it worse than we do.
That
I should have looked
sucks.
at that.
Okay, you know what? Yeah, I think Syracuse is actually going to be a pretty decent team, and I was with Max in the Trap Plant game. It still might be because the distance thing and that turnaround is going to be really quick. But God, that sucks. That's a murderer's row basically right there overall. I don't know what you would do with that, honestly, if you're Dino. I feel bad for the man.
I do too.
That's tough. I mean, the reality is, like, you look at this 5-game stretch, right? Georgia Tech, Miami, Syracuse, Louisiana, and Florida, and this is the stretch where you got to make your money if you're Mike Norvell. I mean, you have an opportunity here to win 3 games comfortably and probably to steal one. I mean, Miami doesn't play a real team, I don't think, until October.
They play Texas
Am I
A&M
right on
next
that?
week.
Okay, so is it
Best 7-win team in football.
Yeah. So so next week, so they get 3 weeks. Well, anyway, point is, we'll know what they look like against Texas A&M, I guess. But even then, will we? Because, like, that's team's supposed to throttle them. So, like, when do we find out who Miami is under the new coach? I don't know. I'll tell you what, Billy Napier looks like he knows what he's doing in the swamp. Anthony Richardson actually looks like a really good quarterback. They gave Utah a pretty solid helping of all they wanted, and I don't know, man. I don't love that game.
Just actually about to ask you. So as of right now, all 3 of us have them at 8-2. When with the last 2 remaining games is Miami and Florida. So I do want to ask both of you. Dave, I'll start with you first, then Max, you go second. What do you think is the more likely outcome here? That we go 2-0, beating Miami and also beating Florida, ending up with a 10-2 season? Or do you think that we basically lose both games, we lose to Miami, and we lose to Florida, and we end up 8-4? And honestly, is an 8-4 season actually losing to both of them, and also but beating Clemson in the process? Do you think that is something that could happen?
First of all, there's no silver lining losing to both Florida and Miami. I don't think it's particularly likely that you lose both of those games. I think it's probably an even likelihood that you lose both is that you win both. You saw what you saw to Billy Napier in that game, but remember that at halftime of that game, the message boards were literally calling for his job, and it was all over Twitter. So,
to be fair, college football fans and us, I include us in that statement, are extremely irrational.
There's very, very rational people,
right?
That understand,
especially
nuance.
There's an entire Twitter account dedicated to message board geniuses.
There's a lot that's going to change between now and both of those games. For example, Florida. I need to see Anthony Richardson do that over a long period of time. I just have to. I need to see what that offensive line is made of, because last year it wasn't good at all. It was worse than ours. The Miami game, for example, I need to see if they have anyone at receiver outside of Xavier Restrepo, or that he's capable of being like a legitimate number 1 college receiver. So there's big question marks for both of those teams too. For me, Miami is going to be overinflated by the time we play them, because if you look at their schedule outside of Texas A&M, the most difficult team they play is before us is like the powder puff game in high school. It's ridiculous. So they're probably going to come in with a good record that overstates their talent level. I'm not really scared of this Miami team. You know how I feel about Van Spike. I'm not going to sit here and say we should win both of those games, but splitting those games, we absolutely should. You have to split those 2 games. You can't go into this offseason with both of those teams being able to brag that, clearly Florida State's the 3rd best team in Florida, if that. Look, we both beat them. You can't have that.
So then which team are we beating between Miami and Florida?
So the way I look at it is, right now, knowing what we know, I've got yet a 39% chance to win both of those games. So, like Dave said, it's it's not that far from a coin flip, given we don't know a ton right now. I think it'd be very on brand for Florida State to drop a game to someone we're totally supposed to beat, and then upset one of these teams. But right now, unless something changes, I don't really think you beat either of them. I mean, I think look better than we do and more complete than we do. But at the same time, like, a lot's going to change. For me, it's not that things will change. I need to know what our defense is. I'm very worried about our coverage. I think we did really well on Sunday, but I'm not seeing guys that can go out there and stop who I think Anthony Richardson is and who I think Tyler Van Dyke's going to be. So, I don't know. I mean, right now, I guess I think it's probably more likely you beat Miami because I think that they're the lesser team talent-wise to Florida by a good margin. I think that Mario and Napier are about a wash at coaching, and I think Richardson is probably more threatening to this defense than Van Dyke because of the way you have to play him with a spy on the field and probably a bigger one that can tackle him. So I'll pick Miami if I have to pick one, but I'm going to need to see some more games before I have like a hard opinion on these games.
No, I can completely agree with that. Although I'm going to side a little more with Dave on this one. I think with Florida, I think Anthony Richardson is definitely who we thought he was actually going to be heading out of high school. The cannon's there, the arm's there, the accuracy's somewhat starting to get over there. They had the running backs with Jordan and also with, I think, Travis Etienne's little brother, Trevor Etienne. I don't believe in that defense at all whatsoever.
Same.
I think mainly they lost that game with Cam Rising, who was getting all the praise, and rightfully so, from last season. But I think he was really, really married to the idea of throwing the ball into the ground in front of his receivers and not actually hitting them in stride at all whatsoever. And then I don't know what that play call was towards the end of the game. He pulled a Russell Wilson, for my personal opinion. So to me, I think with Van Dyke in Miami, I think Restrepo, to what Dave's point earlier, is going to be a solid number one wide receiver. I think they have a great rushing attack with Henry Parrish and also with Jalen Knight, who should be coming back probably by this game. I think he's out for about a month and a half due to a soft tissue injury. But they also have Don Chaney and Thad Franco. And that defense, they have the second best safety duo besides our own. So to me, I would take Florida. And gentlemen, we have just shown a 9-3 football season. Who would have thought that probably heading into this year?
Not me. Not us.
Not me. Not us. Not at all. But Max, thank you so much for joining us. Please let the folks know where to follow you, where they can find your work. And also, how you doing, my guy? It's good seeing you.
Yeah, it's great seeing y'all too. Thanks for letting me come on, folks. It was good being back here. Like I always say, we only do what we do because y'all do what you do. So make sure to keep following this show. I know I like to make it my first listen every day. I'm over at the Seminole Executive Brief. I am a quick 10-minute spot 3 times a week. So again, a little bit of a different format. You can find me on Twitter at MaxMoody17. I made it in 2017. Super creative. You can find me
Dave's
on
handle.
Right? You can find me on YouTube. We're the Seminole Executive Brief. And then same handle, you can find me on TikTok. I've been learning TikTok and it's been fun. So yeah, it's been a blasty blast. So thanks again, guys. I appreciate it.
It's been a blasty blast. Max is very, very hip. He kind of has to stay hip with having a younger daughter who actually, didn't she just have a birthday like 2 weeks ago?
Just did, yeah. She turned 5 a few weeks ago, and your boy turns 30 in 2 weeks. So
you're turning 29 in 2 weeks. You're not turning 30. You're turning 29. My God.
I wish, man. I wish. Take these years back. I don't
Oh,
want them.
that means the Michigan game was 5 years ago. Oh,
I think that
we're not
though,
discussing
by the way, the curse
Michigan
of Charlotte ended. No, we forgot about something. It ended last year when she was in attendance for 4th and 14. I feel like that was the.
No,
that was the turning point. Then we beat LSU. Okay, all right, fine. She's cursed.
No, she's not cursed. Like I said, like that engagement. Since my engagement, FSU is 2-0 and they're undefeated. I'm going to take that because I need to absolve my niece of her curse. But Dave, please let the folks know what to do on the podcast level and on YouTube, and send us home, my guy.
You can find us everywhere podcasts are found: Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Apple, all those good places. On YouTube, if you like this video, please give it a like. Subscribe to the channel. Ding the little bell at the top, turn on your notifications. It'll tell you when our shows are dropping. And leave us a comment. If you disagree with anything, tell us in very angry words so we can talk about it. And we will talk about it.
Dave always egging on the last people. But for Drake, that was Dave. And Max being back. We'll see y'all next time on Locked On Seminoles. Take care, everybody. Don't take turbo time, Max.
It's turbo time.
Go.